Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Not Content Podcast. My name is Jerome Cuson. It is a new month. We have a new theme, and we have a wrestling match to talk about. My colleague, as always, Brian, is joining me. Please leave a 4 or 5 star review on Apple and Spotify to get those algorithms going. Like, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Click the bell icon for notifications. This month, we are taking a look at the Scott brothers. Ridley Scott, he is in his 80s, my friend, and he is still releasing movies. He is going to be releasing movies pretty much until he dies, I think. And we may get into it at the end of the month, his movie, but we are discussing both Tony Scott and Ridley Scott. But we are starting with Ridley Scott's legendary Thelma and Louise. I think at some point we're going to discuss Alien. We may do that as part of a broader Alien month, so that's why we're not discussing Alien. I think Blade Runner is kind of, I mean, what else can you say about Blade Runner at this point? So that's why we're doing Thelma and Louise. Thelma and Louise, I just got the Criterion version, Brian, and I have to say the transfer was quite beautiful. Some great essays, a great cover, not special features, not great, but the movie is great. And all I could say is Gina Davis, then, now, forever, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, this movie is like a visual treat because they shoot the desert so well in this movie. This movie's a great script, fantastic acting. I do think there's some miscasting in this movie on the male side, only because they were going for some tones with some of the characters that don't match up. Like Christopher McDonald, I think is a total miscast. I think Harvey Keitel is a total miscast. Despite our love for Harvey Keitel, like the Brooklyn accent
I
was
think
just
this
coming
is
out too
him.
much.
I think it's him trying to not be a shithead because, like, if you look at his career up to this point, he plays nothing but shitheads, and I think he's trying to do like a
Isn't this the
babyface
same year as
turn.
Bad Lieutenant? I think. I could be wrong on that.
Maybe. I mean, I
But
think he's trying to do so. I
yeah,
think he's trying to do something different, which I appreciate.
like
And
I get it, but like it doesn't like the accent doesn't match up to the point where I felt like it was too forced. You know what I mean? It's like I
it
don't
did.
buy
It
this
didn't
guy
bother
from
me.
the South. Like just cast someone with a
He
southern
could.
accent. Like it's
He
not
could
that
have.
important that it's Harvey
He could
Keitel.
be. But like, I think it actually works well because he's kind of an interloper, and anyway, and he doesn't really fit in with the culture, so to speak. And I think Stephen Tobolowsky's character is much more of the traditional agent for this type of area. So it didn't bother me because I think it played into Harvey Keitel's character really well.
The other issue I had was Christopher McDonald. Like I love him. Like I think he's a comedic genius. But this role should not have been like a comedic stupid role. Which I mean he does well. Like he plays the part well. That's what he was hired for. But like it makes you wonder like what the hell did Thelma see in this guy to marry him in the first place? Like they have no connection and they have like nothing in common. And
But
yet
they might have
somehow
had a connection in high school. I mean, again,
I
I think
hate that. I hate because
I
it
think I think it happens all the time. I think you are severely underestimating how often this happens.
okay, because it just seems such a like such a disconnect. You know what I'm saying? Like there's had to been some kind of connection at first, but they don't even show that. Like I don't know. It was
I don't
really
think they
like hard to
should.
buy
I don't
into.
think that's the point of the movie. I think that if they did, I think that would actually kind of defeat the purpose. I think the starting
I
point
guess,
has
man,
to
but I
be
just I
what a
think the
piece of
tone
trivia.
was every time he's on screen, like the tone went to comedy, and then when the tone should be like
Because
grounded and
he's an
like really
idiot.
heightened
That's
drama.
why.
Yeah, that's the problem. But other than that, like Gina Davis is unbelievable. Susan Sarandon is unbelievable. You can see like why they dominated the category that year, and you can see why people were pissed off Jodie Foster won. I can see it, but you know, I still think Jodie Foster deserved it
I
for what she
mean,
did.
the thing is like Selma and Louise, it's real tough because Silence of the Lambs has arguably been one of those movies that I think people see as like, okay, this movie won an Oscar and it deserved to win. Like Anthony Hopkins is in the movie for 20 minutes, won Best Actor, and honestly, doesn't really bother me that much because like he is the lead male character. Like even if the screen time isn't there, so that's kind of where I'm at on it. But I think in terms of like Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon, the problem is they're both the lead, and Jodie Foster is much more of the definitive lead of Silence of the Lambs. And I think that's probably
So
one of
you
the
think
big.
they split the vote? Is what you're thinking? Because
I think that's a real possibility.
I think that's what happened because I mean, if I were voting,
Because
it's
how
Susan
can you
Sarandon.
can't reward one over the other because I think they're
But I
equally.
think they're all three were deserving. But if I were to pick, it'd be Susan Sarandon. I think that's my vote, even though all three I think were deserving. I
Well,
can't
Susan
speak for the other
Sarandon
two.
did win a few years later.
Right, right.
So
But man, this is such a I think such an iconic role. But that's
yeah,
just
but
me. Like,
you know what? Al Pacino didn't win for Michael Corleone. He won for Scent of a Woman. So this shit happens all the
but
time.
you could I don't know. Scent of Woman doesn't have that hoo-ha thing that translates to multi generations and memes and shit. But yeah, Susan
Yeah,
Sarandon
but
in this movie, I just
but the
so
thing is,
like
like,
iconic. I think like
if
so
you
unbelievable.
if you turn on cable, what is the odds that you see? What are you going to see? Scent of a Woman or The Godfather? What
Well,
odds is that?
if this was 2005, I would have told you maybe Scent of a Woman, but that's changed now because Scent of a Woman has become one of those movies that is like gone from TV. Like there's a category of movies that are just were on TV and are gone from TV, and that's one of them. Because I used to see that on Bravo all the time, dude, and I guess with the Bravo
Hoo-ha!
shift in programming, right? It kind of went away, but people still know the hoo ha. That's my point. But in this case, like this is one of the top five female performances I've ever seen. Like I put Kathy Bates in Misery. Um, oh man, from Parenthood, not what's her name? Diane, what's her name? West? What's her last
Weist,
name? Weist.
Diane Weist.
Diane Weist, one of the most unbelievable performances I've ever seen in Parenthood, and this is up there. Like Susan Sarandon just owns this movie, and Gina Davis is excellent as well. But man, this was like her movie, dude. Like it was such her movie from start to
I mean,
finish, and like
the thing is that this isn't one of those movies. I feel like when you get into it, I think that in a normal movie, like the exciting part would be like the first act when they're getting to know each other, and there's a lot of the hangout spots. But I would argue that the most iconic parts of the movie are all in the second half. And I'm talking about the scene with the cop. The way that they behave with the cop is awesome. And I mean, that is Gina Davis's like Oscar scene right there. I mean, she is so good in that moment where she is simultaneously confident and not confident at the same time. And it's a real standout moment for her. And then when they're fucking with the trucker and they blow his truck up, that is unbelievable. And then you've got the ending, of course, which might be one of the best movie endings of all time, leading to the montage. I mean, my God, just amazing stuff in the final part of this
God,
movie.
you're gonna hate me, Jerome. I really don't like the ending of this movie, despite me
I
liking it a
you
lot.
you are
I just
affectionate.
wanted them to just go to Mexico and be happy,
That's
but
not the point of the movie,
I
though.
know, but the Grand Canyon, they don't even get to. You know what I mean? Like
The whole point is that they are taking
it's like Lord of the Rings, right? But they don't necessarily get to Mordor, and they still win somehow, like in the cartoon. You know what I mean? It's like
But Brian, the point is that they do win because they go out on their own terms.
I
That's the whole
know, I
fucking
know.
gimmick of the movie.
They just said Mexico so many times in this movie that I want them to be there and just be
But
happy.
that's
You
the
know what I
point
mean?
is that they're not going to get there.
I
This
know,
movie
but
has to have a tragic ending. It has to.
it
It
breaks my
cannot
heart,
have.
Jerome, every time. I know. I love happy
I would,
endings in
and you know what?
movies.
I would actually argue that this is a happy ending because they go out on their own terms. That's
That's
my
what
hot
people
take.
think, but man,
That's
that's a
what
brutal
I think.
death as
I
well.
think. I think
It's a
I'm right.
brutal death as well, but I get everyone's point. I know people love this ending to death, but man, I just find it's
I
too
mean, it's an all
tragic almost.
timer. It is an
Like
all
it's in the
time
vein of
great.
like a Romeo and Juliet, but it's so memorable but tragic, and I just mixed emotions, mixed emotions for sure, but in a good way, I guess, because you want the best for these characters. So you know what I mean?
I mean, that was
Uh,
the best thing for them is to not go to jail because men are shit, right?
yeah, that was the
Like,
thing. Like, did you notice some of the subtleties of this movie? No female cops.
I mean, I think, and no black. Were there any black cops? I don't think there were any black cops
I
either.
don't know. It's the South, so they were. Ridley Scott was probably thinking a certain way. You know what I'm
Stephen
saying?
Tobolowsky was quite not sexist. I believe is I'm going to say racist, but I think it's Mississippi Burning. He's being very sexist in this movie, and I think it works. Like I don't have an issue with shitty characters being shitty. If the movie is not on their side, which the movie is not on their side.
Okay, so let's go on the polar opposite spectrum of that because I think Michael Madsen was like the coolest, nicest dude in this movie, right? He didn't give her up,
It's very
right?
different. It is a
He did
very
not give her
different.
up. We don't. At least we don't know he gave up anything up, right? Like he just got questioned,
Well,
and then
here's
we
the
never.
thing. Here's the thing that I find to be so interesting is that the Brad Pitt is known for being a leading man, even though he's in real life a piece of shit. And like he is in this movie and like he sexes up Gina Davis and then steals their money. And like he's kind of like this is his breakout performance. So like this is the movie where I think people really start to notice him. And 2-3 years later, he's doing Interview with a Vampire and kind of on the upward trajectory, right? But I think with Michael Madsen, it's really interesting to me. Like this, you could argue like this is the type of movie that should have turned him into a leading man, and it really doesn't. Like he is in Reservoir Dogs with Harvey Keitel, and he's very much like he is an even bigger piece of shit in that movie than any of the men are in this movie because of what Michael Madsen does to that guy's ear. Look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. But like Michael Madsen, I would argue probably deserved to have his moment in the sun, and he didn't, which I find to be really
Well,
interesting.
my theory on that is that he was just too booked. He was booked as a heel or the heavy, as they say, too much. You know what I'm saying? Like the leading man is not necessarily the heel always. It's you got to root for the guy. So this was like the rare time that I've seen a Michael Madsen movie where you're rooting for him, right? And he's doing the right things, and like he may have had like a moment of like lapse of like anger, right? But you know what I mean? He calmed down and owned up to it, and like you know what I mean? He did the right thing. He gave her the money. He went out of his way. You know what I mean? He made sure she was treated okay. The only thing he couldn't do was stop Brad Pitt from stealing that money, but that was out of his hands. But you know what
Right.
I mean? I was like really like shocked at like this character. Like he really was the nice guy, and it's like you want them to get together, right? You want. It's like this is one of those like soap opera moments where you're yelling at the screen at the characters, like grab him and kiss. You know what I mean? Like the kind of moment. I wanted her to say, "Come to Mexico with me." Please come to Mexico with me. I wanted that so bad, but that's not this kind of movie, right? But I think that's such a strong thing that if you want the audience to see these two like come together like that, that's a strong, that's strong writing in terms of like romance. And for Michael Madsen, it's kind of unheard of because he's such an unlikable character in a lot of his movies. But in this case,
Absolutely.
you're rooting for him. So it's like,
Yeah.
wow, yeah,
Okay. So this is a Ridley Scott movie, but the lighting made it feel more like a Tony Scott movie. True or false?
true. Only because he's shooting desert. Like desert kind of gives you that leeway in terms of
It's
like lighting,
it's
and then
really fascinating to me that
Did
that's
you
how.
notice something too? Like again with the cinematography around, I think it was the hour and 10 minute mark, maybe. Did you see what the clouds looked like?
No,
A storm was coming.
I mean, of course, it's
You see what I'm saying? Like
makes a
that's
lot of sense.
great, like subtle visual, storytelling. That especially that's the kind of storytelling I love because knowing the storm is coming, literally, right? Like I was like, ooh, a storm, and this is like 50 minutes left in the movie. The storm is coming, and I was like, that's great. I wouldn't have noticed that when I first watched this when I was like 16. You know what I'm saying? And that was the first time I actually did watch this movie when I was 16. I remember my parents renting it when I was a kid and kind of watching some of the parts, and they're just like, "Don't come in, you can't see this movie," because that was the Brad Pitt, Gina Davis stuff. But I did remember seeing the ending and not understanding it, and then watching when I was 16, I was like, "Oh, okay, I kind of understand the ending more." And then watching it now, it's like it kind of like it's one of those movies that grows on you because you grow as a person and like your age. Like I would say this and like Jackie Brown are really like good movies to watch in your 40s and 50s to kind of like look back at your life and go like, "Oh, adulthood, huh? Yeah, I get it." You know what I mean? Like that's very much
I
this kind
mean,
of vibe.
the thing about this movie is that this is a movie that should age badly. Like, if there were true justice in the world, this is a movie that we should be looking back at and be like, well, this. Thankfully, we don't live in this world anymore. But the sad part is, this movie has not aged very well in the most negative way possible because it feels like you could rip this story from the headlines in 2026.
I kept thinking that too. Like, God, if they remade this today, it'd be like almost the same. But then I thought of a creative twist. Like, if they were, God forbid, to remake this movie, right?
I mean, they would not turn it into a movie. It would be an 8 episode,
Here's what I would
either
do.
Apple series.
I would make
That
it a
is a
western in
terrible
the
idea.
1800s.
I mean,
Think about
that you wouldn't even call it Thelma Louise. And I mean, look, Cape Fear apparently is terrible. Just stop doing this. Stop taking these early '90s movies and turning them into 8 to 10 episode TV
Well,
series.
I would do it
They
as
were
a
2 hours
movie,
for a
and I would
goddamn
put it
reason.
and I would put it as a western in the 1800s because that's even more, grimy and even shadier male humans, right? And you can get
You
away with, I
certainly
think, more
couldn't do it
violence.
in 2026 because with cell phones and tracking and all
Right.
this.
So I think it works best in like this era or like a prior era because the whole desert on the run thing, right? that was the other thing too. The other thing that kind of bothers me is that they never switch cars. I thought that was like, I don't know. That I feel like that's the first smart move that anyone on the run would do, but I guess I think
I don't
differently.
think it was necessarily an issue because the cops didn't know where they were for the movies.
Well, they found the plate, and that's how we're able to keep. Because I guess it was implied that once the FBI took over, their FBI cameras started scanning the plate and finding it over and over in different states. Right? That's why, or at least that's my impression. Right? Like
Was
that's
it Agent? Was it Agents Johnson and Johnson? No relation.
okay. Well, the FBI was kind of competent in this case. I got to admit, because they did find them in the right place to caught
So,
them
I
right
mean,
before.
on
So,
accident, they literally. I mean,
oh, and then
the two,
okay, what do you think about the Jamaican runner gimmick?
I mean,
God, that
it's
was
it's that's probably the part of the movie that has aged the least, the
yeah,
worst.
God, I don't. So this Jamaican bike rider comes by and finds the cop in the trunk, and
Like
instead of
truly,
letting
like
him
the only
out,
black character.
right, and then instead of letting him out, he blows weed smoke in the holes of the trunk that he's stuck in, and I was like, okay, why are we hotboxing a cop?
I do have to say, a little stereotypical. Again, has not aged well. I did like that. Like him
Right.
blowing the weed smoke in the hole actually was
I mean,
funny.
it's funny, but it's like, okay, was this a Cheech and Chong movie? Because they were also playing I can see clearly now the days come.
I
Right? You know
mean,
that song?
why?
And they
Yeah.
played that in a lot of stuff in the fucking 90s. You know what I'm saying? So I was like,
You know
oh,
what?
this fits the era.
Here's the thing. In 1991, needle drops are not a trope. In 2026, that gets buried 6 feet under because we've just killed needle. So I think that's the big difference. I think
I
that's
guess
absolutely
so,
the
man.
case.
Because as soon as I heard that, I was like, ooh, Cool Runnings. And then I actually found that this was like the original version, and the Cool Runnings version is like the cover version. I went down this rabbit hole because this soundtrack is actually really good. And I mentioned that to Jerome before, like when the movie started, like this does not sound like a Hans Zimmer movie that we know of today, which is great. You know what I mean? Because it's very different from what his style has become. But it's still really good, and it fits this like pseudo neo western style with the hard guitar mixed with like these road type songs, right? I just discovered a Michael McDonald song in this soundtrack that I'd never heard of, and he co-wrote it with Kenny Loggins. And I went down this rabbit hole of Kenny Loggins and Michael McDonald, which is a totally 80s pop thing, which is a totally separate conversation. But yeah, this is a good soundtrack, and it's got some good tracks. Um, yeah, it's a great watch overall, I think. The cinematography is great. My mistake was I watched it on YouTube at first, and then I texted
Huge
Jerome like,
mistake.
oh
Yeah,
shit,
that's
I
what
think
a
this is
terrible
edited."
editor.
And then because when
Yeah.
the rape scene is occurring, like it just seemed like choppy editing, and then some of the dubbing was going on. Like, what the hell's going on? And then I realized YouTube has the TV version, so I
Yeah,
switched
you
to
really
Tubi,
needed to. You
and then I
needed to
switched to
watch it.
Tubi, and I was okay. I got everything uncut, so I was cool with that. But I wonder what the 4K looks like because I got to imagine the
It
4K
looks really
really
good.
elevates
I mean,
elevates the desert look,
it
all the wide
does. It
shots, the
really
beginning
does.
shots. You know what I mean? So 4K on this one is definitely recommended. Um, yeah, I would
One
give
hundred
this an 8 out of
percent.
10. 8 out of 10,
Yep,
despite
that's
my
where I'm at too.
criticisms.
8 out of 10. I'm probably 8.5. Actually, 8.5 out of 10. I think there
And
has to be a separation between the two of us because I like the ending. I think it's an amazing ending, and you're not so hot on it, which I think is
but here's my
really
thing. I
nuts.
think the performances are so strong that it carries the movie to that level
They
on
really
its
are.
own,
I mean, I
right?
think that
Despite me
it is
not
the
liking the
case.
direction of some of the male characters and the way they were portrayed, like you know what I mean. Like I just thought that that
It's a
tone
great
kind of killed it a
ensemble,
little bit.
that's for sure. I
Yeah.
think Silence of the Lambs, you have two powerhouse performances, but it's a shame the Oscars doesn't do a best cast like the SAG Awards because I think this would have won it because I think top to bottom, this cast is great, both the females and
Yeah,
men.
and when we watched the '92 Oscars, when we reviewed it a couple of years ago, right? I did notice that every time Thelma and Louise was mentioned, it seemed like the smart marks of the crowd were cheering for that more so than Silence of the
They
Lambs. Did
were,
you get that kind of
yes.
vibe?
I
So you
mean,
know what I mean?
perhaps, but I think Silence of the Lambs is also a horror movie, and I think horror movies also traditionally have had difficulty at the Oscars, even though I think Silence of the Lambs is kind of a glass breaker, glass ceiling breaker for that reason, and it will be very interesting with Amy Madigan winning for Weapons. Is Indy Navarrete going to get a nomination for Obsession? I think that's kind of the big drama because that feels like it's going to be a real breakthrough moment if that happens.
Well, I'm probably going to watch Obsession in October because That's what I did last year. I saved all the good stuff from the year of the horror, and I waited till October
So you're
to
going to
the
be
point.
watching that and Backrooms in October.
Yep, yep, and that's kind of my plan, and along with our plan, which we'll mention later. But yeah, this has been a good start, and I think it actually works well because the whole idea of like a tag team, right? Thelma and Louise are kind of a tag team. Very fitting that the Ridley Scott, Tony Scott brothers, they're kind of like they didn't direct movies together, but they're very much tied together. Bret and Owen, tag team, brothers tied together. Scott and Rick, tag team, brothers tied together. So I think it was perfect that we picked this match. So and there's a lot of
Maybe
weird
the
things
best
about it
match
too.
in the maybe the best match in the history of Coliseum Video in terms of like exclusives. Like
Maybe I got to say it's up there. I know I really like the. I know people love the Boss Man Hogan cage match from Saturday Night's Main Event, but I think the ones from Boston and New York were better because they had blood. And they were
um,
on those super
I don't
tapes.
know. I Those are not Coliseum exclusives. I think those were aired in like the local markets, right?
Really? Because I remember watching the Boston one in the regular cage as a kid on a tape, and that was like, whoa, where's the blue cage?
I think that aired on Nesson or whatever the Boston equivalent was that at that
Okay,
time.
I gotta figure it out because that's on the list if it's actually was released from Coliseum.
Because
Uh,
there are matches that were on Coliseum tapes, but they weren't exclusive because they aired on the
oh,
Coliseum.
I see what you're saying. So if it was like a double dipping, it doesn't necessarily count,
Like if it
right?
aired on, like there are a bunch of MSG matches on Coliseum videos, but those
Right.
don't count because those.
But the thing is like it listed as Wrestling Challenge. I don't know necessarily if this actually did air on Wrestling Challenge because I would have remembered this on Wrestling Challenge.
I think this aired. I think this is a Coliseum exclusive. I don't think it ever aired on proper TV because I don't think there would have ever been context for it to air on proper TV because
Right.
Bret
And
and
the
Owen.
commentary doesn't like do TV breaks or anything. And this was supposed to, because if you look on the YouTube right now,
No,
it'll
this is
tell
a
you,
true Coliseum
yeah,
exclusive.
it says Wrestling Challenge, but I think that's a big error because this was not on that.
No,
It was
I
on a
think this
tape.
was taped when they taped a wrestling challenge. This was probably one of the matches that they taped outside of
Oh,
this
but they didn't air this. Yeah, okay. I get it now. So it was taped
because
at a Wrestling
they
Challenge.
would do
Right.
dark matches.
So this was a dark match on a Wrestling Challenge, and then they put it on the tape. Okay. So that qualifies then. Then it probably
Yeah,
is because that's the only ones I can think of are Hogan and Bossman
I
in the
mean,
cage.
Bret Hart and Randy Savage against Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels is probably up there too.
Um, that's a fun match. I've seen that. I've seen it multiple times, but I just kind of feel like there's kind of something missing. It's still a really good match,
I
but
mean, it's
this
a
is
dark.
like
It's
something
I think
different.
it's very similar. I think it's a dark match.
Yeah, but this is like they're doing like mat wrestling off the bat, and it's like we know that all four of these guys can do amateur wrestling. So when you watch it, it's like, whoa, is this a shoot? You know what I'm saying? Like it feels like a shoot at the beginning, which of course is ridiculous, but that's just the
Well,
way
it's
it
also
feels.
Owen Hart wrestling as a babyface, which you almost never get. Like Owen Hart from like so he came back. His full time run in WWF as Owen Hart was basically 93 to his untimely death in 1999, and I think he was a babyface for like a year. No, he 92 because he was doing the team with
High
Neidhart.
energy, yeah, and
So
high
he was like
energy.
a babyface for a little bit longer than that, but like you don't
A little
really
over a
get
year, and then they didn't know what to do with him, and then they came up with the brother gimmick idea, and that was supposed to be what
right because
Bruce Hart.
it was supposed to be Bruce Hart, and thank God it wasn't because that would not have
That would
gone
have made
over
no
well.
sense, like at all. It always should have been Owen, like no matter what, like he was
Brett is
destined
the
for
one
that
that
role.
pushed for it to be Ellen. So as much as people want to
Yeah,
shit on him for not getting people over, he certainly got his brother over. I mean, he got Owen
yeah,
over big time in a big way.
yeah.
And I mean, this match I don't know necessarily contributed to that lore. It's really unfortunate that we don't have any other Bret Hart Steiner matches, right? I don't think Bret Hart ever wrestled Scott or
It's
Richard
just
singly.
the timing because the stupid people at WCW turned him halfway through in '98, and when you do that, like that limits you because Scott was a big heel. So I think Brett and Scott is when Scott was doing his heel turn, that would have been something in WCW. You know what I'm saying? Like the Steiner recliner versus the sharpshooter, but they didn't go in that direction. So
Yeah, and WCW was such a mess at that point. Like Bret
right.
Hart turned heel
And
right
they
around
could
the
have
time
done
that
Rick
Scott
versus
Steiner turned
Brett
heel.
when Brett turned, right? But they didn't do that either. Like I thought that would have been an obvious choice, right? Like Rick
Maybe. I
Steiner
mean,
as a babyface.
Rick was kind of cooked by '98, I think, and I think I mean, quite frankly, I think Scott was too, just because of injuries and whatnot. I think they were both kind of cooked. But I mean, it's just unfortunate that like this is the only representation. I mean, it's a really good match. It's a babyface match. They take a lot. They take turns. You don't get a finish, which I have mixed feelings about. It's just like I would have loved to have seen because I mean, I think the thing that makes Bret Hart and Steiner matches, quite frankly, special is the fact that they tend to have really good endings, and it's unfortunate that we didn't get one. We get a double disqualification, and they're fighting after the fact, and they kind of begrudgingly like give each other respect. But it's a shame that this really couldn't have gone anywhere because I think just days after this, Owen Hart turned on his brother, and we got his big turn and his big moment in the sun.
Yeah, and then I guess the Steiners were on the outs, right? Like they were getting pushed. Like they're not even on WrestleMania 10. And like as I recall, Scott Steiner does like a job to IRS in like a King of the Ring match or something.
Yeah, it's
Um,
really weird.
and then they're
Like he
gone. So
basically like he comes back for one match. It's really fucking weird.
I don't know. It's so strange that whole tournament in '94. But um, yeah, this match is like so unique, and like Scott Steiner doing some crazy bumps in this. Like at one point, Bret Hart suplexes him to the floor. And normally, when that happens, you got to kind of protect the guy and kind of go with him. No, Bret Hart just fucking suplexes him. Let's go. And like Scott first lands on his legs because that's the only thing you can do. You go 360 and then completely collapses because it's just such a epic like movement to the body. You know what I mean? It's so like
No, it's
unnatural for the
great.
body to
I
do
mean,
that.
this entire match is just it feels very fresh. It feels like something. It feels like you're seeing something really special here in terms of this match. And I would say that this is probably like a 7 or 8 out of 10. So I don't necessarily know that it's not the match of the year, but like they're doing some really interesting stuff. And if you put this on pay-per-view, like you probably get something truly special.
Yeah, and then this is one of the few times I think we see the Steiner screwdriver like in the US and like
Well, in
yeah,
the
like
WWF, I don't think Scott was doing it in the WWF.
I think he did it one time, as I recall. Then he pointed to Randy Savage because it was a
It's pretty
jobber. He's
brutal.
like, and he goes, "This is for you, Randy," and destroys a jobber right after that with the screwdriver. But in this case, Owen takes it, and it looks disgusting, and Brett has to come in immediately to save him. And it's like, oh my god! And then at one point, I think like Stan Lane was worried that he was knocked out or something. Yeah, it's just crazy this match because like the stuff they do is like
It
so out
is.
of nowhere. And like at one point, Brett does a DDT as a transition, and I was like, "Oh no! If Jake the Snake ever watches this match, you'd be so pissed." You know what I mean? Because like they're doing stuff as transitional stuff that modern wrestlers complain about today, which I found so ironic. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're killing the DDT, and we got Bret Hart just doing a random DDT as a transition in '94. So you know what I mean? And then, of course, I love the Steiner Bulldog, and we got a great Bulldog from Rick Steiner in this one.
Yep. No
And then
necks were
Owen
broken.
Hart, yeah, no necks are broken, but Owen Hart, like, carrying himself in this match, I think really speaks to, like, him. Because, like, to go
I
up
mean,
against
the
the
thing is
Steiners and
that
not
he
seem
was
like a small
always
guy,
good. Like
right?
that's the thing that people forget is that Owen Hart was really fucking good for a long time, and like he had a really bad knee injury. I think he actually got it towards the end of his run in the WWF, and like this guy was a high flyer. He was a spectacular high flyer. And the thing is that I don't know that he was as good as his brother Bret. I think there's some people that really want him to be better than Bret, but he was still really good, man. Like this wasn't a case of like, oh, he's just carrying his little brother along for the ride. Like Owen Hart independently probably should have been the WWF champion.
Yeah, I think at some point before the whole Blue Blazer shit that he got stuck in the mid card with, I think at some point he was like penciled in kind of for a main event spot with Austin, but I think you know what I mean, like that
Steve
whole
Austin
neck
was
injury.
never going to work with. He was never going to
Oh,
work with Hart after he broke his
after the
neck.
neck injury, yeah. So that was the unfortunate thing, like because that clearly could have been something, right? Like that has a history. Austin's a champion now. He couldn't defeat Brett, right? You know what I mean? Like there's a story built in, but they just never went with it, and it kind of like put Owen down
And
further the
I
card.
mean, the thing is that neither Shawn Michaels or Steve Austin would ever work with Owen, and that was kind of it.
Or luckily, The Rock was like there with him. You know, in '98, I love that connection with those two. But
Yeah.
yeah, they didn't stick together for so long once the Nation was out. But yeah, this match is like a 4 out of 5, I guess, for me. Like maybe in a quarter. And I know the finish is like kind of mixed feelings, but it does kind of remind you of like those All Japan finishes where like you got two hot babyface tag teams that the crowd really loves, and like you don't know who to pick, and they do a bullshit finish, right, to protect everyone. That's kind of the vibes here, but in a good way, you know. Like, um, man, I just can't imagine like what if you do a switcheroo and this was on the Royal Rumble and not the Rougeaus, but would that same like feeling happen? Would the heel turn be as dramatic if it wasn't for it? Like, you know what I mean? So, a what if in history, I think, but still, like this is a great showcase,
Yeah,
and yeah, for what it
it's
is.
really good.
And it's listed as like 30 minutes on YouTube too, but the match is only like 22, and there's like the 8 minutes of the post brawl, which I
It's still
liked.
a long
So
match, though. It is.
yeah,
It's not a half-ass like dark match that a lot of Coliseum matches are. This one is well worth it, and it's very easily available on YouTube. So our Scott Brothers examination will continue next week. We are going to be talking about Tony Scott. We originally had something else slotted, but then I remember True Romance exists, and we have to talk about True Romance, right?
I guess so. Because I the reason I originally picked Crimson Tide is because I hadn't seen it in a while, and you know what I
Here's the
mean. And
thing: Crimson Tide is well worth seeing thematically, especially after watching
right,
Thelma
but True
Louise.
Romance is such a bitter experience. I get it. I get it. So let's go with that. Um, I'm trying to think. Did anyone recently pass away from the cast? I don't think so. Let's knock on wood for this one because Christopher Walken is an old man. Let's keep him alive.
Dennis
But
Hopper
yeah,
is dead.
but man, that legendary scene we'll talk about, man, because that scene is epic. But yeah,
Here's the
it's a
thing: that
legendary
movie
movie.
has like I know what scene you're talking about, but there's literally like 3 or 4 legendary scenes. One
I
of which probably
know,
hasn't aged very well, but
right?
um, I think that you have two all time great performances in this movie. One of which is the lead, and one of which is a supporting character. And I will tease you with that going into next week.
Very interesting, and it's rare that we talk about Christian Slater outside of like Robin Hood, right? So,
We will
uh,
be. Oh, we do get to talk about Val Kilmer.
that's right. That's right. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to talk about in this
There's a
movie.
lot of stuff to talk about. We get to talk about
Yeah,
Falky next week.
that's right. Right. And then I guess the weird history of this being like Quentin Tarantino wrote two scripts, and they were originally kind of the same script, and they ended up becoming True Romance and what's the other one? Natural Born
Natural Born
Killers.
Killers, and he didn't
So it's
direct
like
either
he
one. And
right, just craziness, man. There's a whole story behind that where he ended up like getting two paychecks instead of one. So basically, so
I
yeah, for
have to
sure.
say, one of these, I definitely liked one of those movies and did not like the other one. And we
Well,
will
that's for
talk,
sure.
and it'll be really clear after next week which one
Right.
is.
One thing I just gotta unfortunately point out too, what I noticed with my kind of booking of this, Bret and Owen Hart, obviously, Ridley and Tony. Tony passed away. Owen passed away. I'm not gonna say how out loud, but if you know, it's very similar. So that's kind of
Yeah,
scary. But
it's really disturbing that that connection has been made.
yeah, but it's fucking real and it's unfortunate, but it does make this kind of more or and kind of enhances the theme that we came up with this month. So it all
Well,
connects.
Owens was not a suicide. Owens was
Of course.
carelessness.
Yes, that's the big difference, obviously. But I'm
All
just saying
right,
that's scarily, eerily similar.
next week, Tony Scott, True Romance. We will be talking about it, and we'll be talking more about Hans Zimmer. We didn't really talk about him this week, but we will definitely do so next week. For Brian, I'm Jerome. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.